everybody, and welcome to the International Day of Women and Girls in Science. We're going to celebrate today by reading a few stories celebrating that same thing, women and science. So, for our first book today, we're going to be reading Cece Loves Science, written by Kimberly Derting, Shelli R. Johannes, and illustrations or the pictures by Vishati Harrison. Cece loved to ask questions. Her mother said her first word was why. Her father said it was how, but her favorite question was what if. You would make a great scientist, Cece, said her teacher, Ms. Curie, because science is all about asking questions. Do fish ever get thirsty? Cece wanted to know. They do, said Ms. Curie. Do hummingbirds really hum? The sound comes from their wings, said Ms. Curie. What if we all jumped at the same time? Would the earth move? A good question, said Ms. Curie. I think we should investigate. Ms. Curie told Cece and her friends about famous scientists from history, such as Caroline Herschel, Thomas Edison, George Washington Carver, and Jane Goodall. She also introduced them to many different sciences. Geology is the study of Earth, biology is the study of living things, and entomology is the study of insects. One day, Ms. Curie told everyone to pair up. For our next project, I'd like you to pick a science you are curious about and come up with a question to investigate, she said. Cece and her best friend Isaac were a team. They both love zoology, which is the study of animals. Now, they just needed to think of an interesting question. First, they brainstormed a bunch of ideas. Science is all about possibilities. Is a bear ticklish? Cece asked. Do we really want to find that out? Said Isaac. Do pigs know when they are smelly? Cece asked. Only a pig can answer that, Isaac said. Keep thinking, said Ms. Curie. A scientist thinks outside of the box and never, ever gives up. That night at dinner, Cece was explaining the project to her parents when her dog Einstein jumped up and started eating the food right off her plate. Einstein, down, said Cece's mother. Cece giggled. Her plate was licked clean, except for the broccoli. Well, look what Einstein did, she said. I guess neither of you likes your veggies, her dad said, laughing. This observation gave Cece a great idea. Einstein could be their science project. Cece called Isaac. I've got it. Let's find out if dogs eat vegetables. Cool, said Isaac. Cece couldn't wait to get started. The next day after school, Cece and Isaac headed straight to Cece's lab to work on their project. Ms. Curie's science project worksheet. Zoology, the study of animals. Brainstorm ideas. Are bears ticklish? Do pigs stink? Do fish sleep? Our question is, do dogs eat vegetables? Our test subject? Dogs. Canis related to the wolf or canine. List some facts about your subject. Einstein named after Albert Einstein, 40 pounds, gray, and brown. Well, what do we do first? Asked Isaac. Let's observe our subject, Cece said. Observation. Doggy treats guarantee 100% participation, said Cece. Excellent data, said Isaac. Isaac and Cece watched Einstein eat. They watched Einstein drink. They even watched Einstein sleep. Sometimes science is all about waiting and waiting and waiting for something really cool to happen. From our observations, we know Einstein loves to eat kibble and doggy treats, said Cece. Now we need to investigate our question, said Isaac. Do dogs eat vegetables? I already know Einstein doesn't like broccoli, said Cece. I don't either. Well, let's test some different veggies, said Isaac. It's experiment time, said Cece. finally. Cece and Isaac tried carrots, beans, and cucumbers. Einstein turned up his nose to each one. Well, what if we disguise the vegetables with bacon and ketchup? Isaac asked. This time, Einstein was interested. He ate the bacon and licked the ketchup off the vegetable. That means he likes bacon and ketchup, said Cece. Well, what if you mix the vegetables up with his kibble? Asked Isaac. I bet he won't even know the difference, said Cece. Einstein ate all his kibble, but left the vegetables in the bottom of the bowl. Einstein might not eat vegetables, but he sure is smart, said Cece. Cece gave Einstein a treat and rubbed his nose. Good boy, she said. She looked at Isaac and shrugged. Now what? We're supposed to interpret our data, said Isaac. Einstein definitely loves food, said Cece. He sure doesn't like broccoli, said Isaac. He doesn't like any vegetables, added Cece. Not even if we cover them in bacon and ketchup, said Isaac. I guess Einstein is a picky eater, said Cece. That night at dinner, Cece was so disappointed she didn't even finish her dessert. Maybe I'm not a real scientist after all, she said. Our project was boring. I thought you asked a great question, her dad said. Einstein put his paws on the table and sniffed Cece's banana split. Einstein, Cece giggled, naughty puppy. Her mother laughed and pulled Einstein away. He may not eat veggies, she said, but he sure likes bananas. That's when Cece remembered something Miss Curie always said. Scientists think outside the box. What if we create a secret recipe using bananas? She asked. Cece and Isaac rushed home after school and mixed together carrots, beans, cucumbers, and bananas in a blender. Are those still veggies? Asked Isaac. Yup, said Cece. They're just in a different form. Gross, Isaac said, wrinkling his nose. Cece poured the mixture into Einstein's bowl. How about a special smoothie? She asked, patting his head. At first, Einstein looked confused. He circled the bowl. He sniffed the bowl. Then he got down on his belly and wagged his tail. And then he slurped down the entire thing. Look, he loves it, said Isaac. In science, not all results are totally predictable. Einstein does eat vegetables when we mix them with bananas, said Cece. And that's when Cece made the most extraordinary observation of all. Science isn't about asking questions. Real scientists have fun finding answers too. The end.
Okay, friends, our next book is called She Persisted by Chelsea Clinton and pictures by Alexandra Boyer. This book is about some females in science and also women who did other extraordinary things. Sometimes being a girl isn't easy. At some point, someone will probably tell you no, will tell you to be quiet, and may even tell you your dreams are impossible. Don't listen to them. These 13 American women certainly did not take no for an answer. They persisted. Harriet Tubman was born a slave, and her story could have ended there. But instead, she persisted, escaping from slavery and becoming the most famous conductor on the Underground Railroad. She risked her life many times to lead countless slaves to freedom, including her family, friends, and strangers. Every person she led to freedom arrived safely. Once Helen Keller became blind and deaf as a toddler, few people thought she'd be able to read, write, or speak. But she persisted. Helen learned how to do all three, and not only became the first person with deaf blindness to graduate from college, but she used her story to help fight for more opportunities for people with disabilities in the United States and around the world. After her family fled poverty and the threat of violence in Ukraine for a new home in New York City, Clara Lemlich got a job working at a garment factory. She wrote that the factory conditions made women into machines, and so she persisted, organizing picket lines and strikes that ultimately helped with better pay, shorter hours, and safer working conditions for thousands of workers, both men and women. Nellie Bly became a reporter in part because a male writer had said that working women were a monstrosity, and she wanted to prove that women could do anything. At times, putting her safety at risk, she persisted. Throughout her career in exposing real monstrosities, pretending to be a sweatshop worker and a patient in a mental hospital to show how badly people were treated. Inspired from an early age by her brother's childhood illness, Virginia Apgar was determined to be a doctor, long before many girls had such dreams. Even though she qualified to be a surgeon, the male head surgeon at the hospital discouraged her because she was a woman. Nevertheless, she persisted, becoming an anesthesiologist and creating the Apgar score to test a newborn baby's health, which hospitals all over the world still use today. After Maria Talchi's family moved to California, partly to support Maria's dream of becoming a dancer, she was teased by students in school for her Native American heritage, and later was encouraged to change her last name to something that sounded Russian, since many professional dancers at the time were from Russia. She persisted, ignoring all the taunting and poor advice, to become the first great American prima ballerina. As a 15-year-old riding a bus home from school in Montgomery, Alabama, Claudette Colvin was expected to give up her seat to a white woman just because she was African American. In her refusal to get up, she persisted in taking a stand for what's right, helping to inspire Rosa Parks to make the same choice 9 months later, an act many point to as starting as the modern civil rights movement. When Ruby Bridges was in kindergarten, many schools across America, particularly in the South, still refused African American students their equal right to an education. Ruby wouldn't be treated like a second-class student, and she persisted, walking for weeks past angry, hateful protesters to integrate an all-white elementary school in New Orleans. As the first woman to serve as both a U.S. representative and a U.S. senator, Margaret Chase Smith could have let that fact alone be her legacy. Instead, she persisted in championing women's rights and more opportunities for women in the military, standing up for free speech, and supporting space exploration. The head of NASA once noted that we would not have put a man on the moon without Margaret. Sally Ride always believed women could succeed in any math or science career. Although not everyone agreed, she persisted, and she became the first American woman in space. But that wasn't enough for Sally. She traveled into space once more, and then created science and engineering programs specifically for girls, so she could help generations of young women achieve their dreams too, both on Earth and in outer space. When, as a kid, Florence Griffith Joyner visited her father in the Mojave Desert, he would urge her to run faster and faster, to run as fast as a jackrabbit. Even when she had to leave for college to help support her family, she persisted in her training on the track, then went back to school and got faster and faster. Her unbroken world record in the 100-meter and 200-meter sprints, set at the 1988 Summer Olympics, means she is still the fastest woman ever. Oprah Winfrey's grandmother expected Oprah to follow in her footsteps and become a maid. But Oprah knew, even as a young girl, that her dreams would take her somewhere else. She persisted in turning those dreams into her reality and becoming a media superstar, working in movies, books, magazines, theater, and most of all, television, where The Oprah Winfrey Show remains the highest-rated talk show of all times. Watching fictional judges on television inspired Sonia Sotomayor to want to be a real-life judge when she grew up. She knew she had to speak English as well as she spoke Spanish, studying hard in school and managing her diabetes before she could one day wear a judge's robe with a gavel in hand. She persisted, eventually becoming a Supreme Court justice and the first ever Latina to sit on America's highest court. So, if anyone ever tells you no, if anyone ever says your voice isn't important or your dreams are too big, remember these women. They persisted, and so should you. The end. Okay, friends, I hope you enjoyed both of these books on today, the International Day of Women and Girls in Science. And I hope that you do everything in your power to achieve your dreams and persist as well.
For more programming like this, see cmcleveland.org.